Hi traders, this is Robert again with the next lesson in WealthLab University. In the last lesson we started with our strategy building blocks, an introduction to the strategy building blocks. And we're going to continue that introduction. Let's pull up really quickly. Here we go, a strategy building block. We have the default strategy here. We're going to continue with this introduction, working with different ways to combine conditions using the or divider multi-condition group. We're also going to talk about position management, this single multiple positions option here. We're going to talk about qualifiers also. But the first thing we want to get started with is a way to easily change your parameters for strategies using sliders. And this is going to be a setup for later doing optimizations. Let's start with our simple moving average crossover strategy. And let's go ahead and build it really quickly. So indicator crosses indicator, and we're going to use two SMAs, two simple moving averages. We'll do a 20 over a 50, and then we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to cross under. SMA crosses under a 50. And let's look at our strategy settings. Okay. That's fine. We're going to run that on one symbol, make sure it does what we want. So we cross over, we buy it, and we cross under, we sell it. Okay. So the thing I wanted to talk about is how to set this up with sliders. Notice how there's nothing on the right side of this, this window in the strategy settings. Now, what we can do is we can create an optimization variable, which is a parameter, okay, and we're going to do that by making this parameter optimizable. Whenever there's a parameter that can be optimized, it could be an integer or a floating point double parameter, you can optimize it. And so what we did is let's start over again. We click on that to bring up where we would change the parameters, change the period. We're going to click make optimizable. Now let's call that period 1. We could call it anything we want. We could call it period fast. And we're going to set up a range of what would be typical for that fast period. So let's call it from 10 to maybe 30, and then we're increment it in steps of 2, okay? And notice that we don't have any option down here to select an existing variable. So let's go ahead and say okay. You can see that we're 10 to 30 by 2. And this is our default. Whatever we set here, let's make it 18. That'll be our default period, okay? And notice how we say, you can look at the description here. It says SMA 18 crosses over. So this is using the default period, okay? Let's do the same thing for this other one, for the slow period. Let's make it optimizable, and let's call it from 40 to 60. In steps of 5, okay, and call that period slow. Notice I could select period fast down here if I wanted to, but we don't want to do that. We want to create a new one, and we did that. Same thing. You can see how we have, well, let's see. Let's change the, let's make it 45. So that's our default, okay. Now notice let's go ahead and run that strategy. Notice what happens. Wow, we've got a lot of moving averages now. Well, that's because every time that we changed something up here, we didn't change it down here yet. So if we want to use the same moving average, same indicator in both the entry and exit rules, or wherever that indicator is used in your strategy, you need to do the same, you would have to do the same thing. Now we could say, for example, we know we're using an 18 as our default. We could type in 18, run that again, and you'll see that we only have one fast moving average now. But actually the strategy behind the scenes is creating two separate indicators. But what we could do is make this one optimizable also. But instead of creating a new variable, we're going to use an existing one that we created. Remember, we called the fast period the period fast, and the slow one period slow. So let's go ahead and use the fast period as our optimizable variable. You can see that everything snapped to the same values as before. And let's do the same thing with the slow period. Let's make it optimizable. Use an existing one, but not the fast period. We want to use the slow period. Okay? So now we've set this up that whenever we change something up here, it's going to change down here as well. Let's go ahead and run that. And you can see that we're back to our 2 moving averages here. And let's go over to our settings now. Notice how now that we have optimizable parameters, we can easily change those parameters however we like. Notice how I click this, it goes up in steps of 2. This one goes up in steps of 5 because that's the way I set it up for my optimizable parameters. Let's leave that at 2645 and run it. And you can see that we still have only 2 periods and they're 2645 now. Now, if you wanted to save those as the default period, you could either reset it to the way you set it up before, or you could save these as the default, as the strategy defaults. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is that instead of having to come back to the strategy settings window, there's also another window down here in the lower left, which is you might have to show it. It's called the view. It's the parameter slider panel. Okay. And I'm not sure, we might have talked about that before when we introduced indicators. But you can change that in either place. Notice if I change it down here, it changes over here too. And we can run the strategy. Let's go ahead and bump that down to 40, run it again. And so we have 28 and 40. Let's come back and let's reset that to the defaults. Those are the last defaults that I saved, 2645. Okay? So the thing to take away here is if you want to use one indicator in multiple rules, set it up as an optimizable variable. You don't have to worry too much about the ranges, but if you know kind of the range that you want to use, like I did here, something around 10 to 30. We're going to set this. This is going to be how you set up parameters for optimizations later. But it's a quick way and an easy way to be able to change the parameters for the indicator in one of the rules and have it apply everywhere that you use it in the strategy by setting this up using existing optimization parameters or existing parameters. Another thing to talk about is, if you change the slider, notice how there's another auto run selection down here. Let's go ahead and put it on the chart view. You can see as I click, I can select different parameters and nothing happens. So I have to run it automatically. But if you just want to go ahead and, as long as you're not doing a portfolio backtest and you're just working with one symbol, you might just want to run it as soon as you change the parameters. So let's just click over here. And you can see how that is applied right away. And you can see the indicators updated, the strategy runs automatically. So that's another option for you. Okay, let's go back to the design surface and let's talk about combining strategies, combining conditions. One of the thing that we talked about before is ANDing conditions, so that multiple conditions have to be true at the same time for a signal to occur. So let's recreate that rule where the moving average has to be moving up before we take a trade. So let's say, for example, that the 45 or the slow period has to be moving up. So let's go ahead and say compare indicator to compare to indicator, and okay, let's go ahead and here we go. The SMA, we want to use this slow period. And let's say the SMA has to be greater than the same one bar ago, or 2 bars ago like I did before. Let's do this again. So you can see I'm taking advantage of this optimization variable, this parameter. So if I change it once, I don't have to change it. Looks like I would have to change it 1, 2, 3, 4 times now. And let's go ahead and put that. So this has to be greater than the SMA 2 bars ago. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this, and notice how that here, let's see here. For example, here, no, we had a crossover that looks like it was moving up. Let's find one of these where it's moving down. Okay, for example, here. Okay, here the slow period is the blue one, is moving down, and we had a crossover. We didn't take that one. So notice how back in our strategy settings, we still only have one parameter to work with, and I can go ahead and change that, and that's going to change it in everywhere that it's used. Okay. And so both of these rules have to be true. So this is an and because there's nothing in between them. So let's add another rule. Let's say indicator crosses value. Okay, this is a good one to add to it. And we'll go ahead and use the RSI, and we'll say if the RSI crosses under 35, we'll say, and we could do the same thing with optimization variables, but we're only going to use this once for now, so let's skip that. So the idea here is that we want to, let's say we want to enter when these two are ANDed, or when this one goes, or when this condition is true, when the RSI crosses under, let's make it even 30. Let's make it even a little bit lower. So how would we do that? We would add this OR divider. So we have to add it to the condition right above it to put it between this one and that one. So you can see that these two are ANDed, and it's saying or this one. Okay? And let's go ahead and run that now. And let's find a condition where we might have to, let's go back and create, add some more. Let's just go ahead and run it on all data since we're just using daily data. And here we'll surely find a place where, for example, here, the slow period is moving. Is it the slow period's black now? Or no, this is the fast period. Here's the slow period. Yeah, the slow period's blue still. Okay, so here we sold. Okay, here we bought. And obviously the slow period is moving down here. So why did we buy here? Well, because on the bar before that, the RSI was 37 and it went to 20, and then we bought. Okay, so this one was bought on the RSI condition, whereas here we go. Okay, so now we're still looking for a crossover. Notice how we're still using. Let's go ahead and. We're still using this sell at market rule, right? So even though we ignored this entry rule, we bought on the RSI closing rule, and we're still using this sell at market rule for this condition, which applies to the block above it, right? So we're waiting to sell that RSI condition until we got the cross under, okay? So I think I probably don't have to drive that home any more than I just did. Just wherever you need to put an OR divider that creates OR conditions. So now this would be the SMA crosses over. You would buy at market if for this condition, or for that condition, or for that. So any of those could be true. And if we remove that, these two are ANDed, or this one. And you can do this many times over to create lots of different combinations any way that you like. But we also have another way to combine conditions, and it's called multi-condition group. So let's go ahead and drag a multi-condition group over. And the way this works is you drag conditions into the multi-condition group. Let's go ahead and just drag all these conditions that we have here into the multi-condition group and get rid of this OR divider. Now the OR divider doesn't make sense inside of a multi-condition group, but you can create a multi-condition group. Let's just say and create another. Let's just add another condition under the multi-condition group, and you could OR it with the multi-condition group. So let's put that on there. So now we have a multi-condition ORed with another condition. So lots of different combinations here. But let's concentrate on the multi-condition group now. You can see that we have another group type. So we have at least n conditions are true, or condition number n is true. So these are numbered 1, 2, 3, top to bottom. And the way this works is, let's say we want 2 out of 3 of these conditions to be true. So any 2 out of the 3 could be true to create a trade. We can make all 3 of them true, or if 1 out of the 3, any 1 out of the 3 could be true, which would be exactly the same thing as ORing all the conditions together. So this gives you another way to combine conditions in a kind of a compact way. So to recap that one more time, if you created at least n conditions are true, 1, that would be the same as ORing all the conditions. If you had 3 conditions and all 3 of them had to be true, this would be no different than ANDing all the conditions together without the multi-condition group. So the advantage here is to be able to pick number of conditions. Or if you wanted to evaluate conditions individually, you can select condition number n is true. So again, the conditions are numbered 1 to 3 from the top to the bottom. So this is condition number 1. This would be condition number 2. So let's go ahead and run that. So we're ignoring conditions 1 and 3 now. We're just going to, the buy-up market will happen when the SMA, the slow moving average, is moving up. So let's go ahead and use our position navigator, snap to the first position. Here you can see clearly that it moved up right there. And let's go to the next one. Okay, so this one happens to, okay, so we had a sell. Okay, remember we're still selling when the fast moving average crosses below the slow moving average. And in this case, we bought immediately afterwards because the slow moving average was still moving up. So these are the things that happen all the time when you're developing strategies. You don't necessarily expect that you're going to buy immediately after you exit a position, so you might have to adjust your rules for that. For example, you might adjust your exit rule to say, I don't want to sell unless the slow moving average is moving down and the fast moving average is below it. So that would be one way to fix that condition. Let's look at one more. Okay, here you can see that we were moving down and then it started moving up and then we bought. Okay. If we wanted to go back to just the regular moving average crossover strategy, we could just pick condition number 3 here, which is the crossover, and we're going to sell when we cross under. So let's run that, and this should make a lot more sense. Go to the first position. Here's the crossover, and then we bought. Here's the cross under right there, and then actually it's right there, and then we sold. Let's do one more. Crossed over here, we bought, and the cross under is there, and then we sold. So to recap, this is a good way to evaluate one condition at a time. And of course, the true power here is to combine conditions in other ways. So the number of conditions, all 3, any 2 of the 3, or just any one of the 3, which is the same thing as ORing all the conditions together. Okay, let's go ahead and minimize that strategy, switch gears, and let's look at qualifiers. So let's do a simple strategy really quickly, open a new block strategy, and let's put in a condition indicator is below condition compare to value, for example. So that's our RSI condition. Let's make this a 10-period RSI so that it moves up and down a little bit faster. Okay, value less than 30. Okay, so we're looking at, let's go ahead and hide these. We're concentrating on qualifiers. Now, qualifiers are a way to modify the logic of a condition, okay? And of course, always a reminder, if you hit the F1 key, you can get to the building block strategies. If you want a description of qualifiers, go ahead and click on qualifiers, and it will tell you what each one of these qualifiers does in that description. Okay, so for example, let's go over this first one. So it's pretty clear that right now we're going to buy, well, let's go ahead and run it to make sure. Let's run that strategy that we get some trades here. So whenever the RSI is below 30, like right there, the RSI is 28, and we bought, okay. So what we want to do is evaluate one of these qualifiers. So n consecutive bars. So we'll drop that on there, and we'll say that the RSI has to, instead of just below 30, it's got to be below 30 for 2 consecutive bars. So let's run that and check one of the trades. Okay, so for example, here the RSI is at 36. If you look at the left side of the chart right over here, the RSI is 36 on this bar. And here it drops below 30, and it's still below 30, so that's 2 consecutive bars below 30, and then we bought. Okay, so that's a pretty good demonstration right there. Here's a quick comment. If I were to drop another qualifier on that condition, it just changes the qualifier. So you can only apply one qualifier per condition. If you wanted to create, if you needed a condition with multiple qualifiers, of course, you could and those conditions together. So you would recreate the block here. So for example, if I wanted the RSI below 30 for 2 consecutive bars and one with the indicator symbol, I would just recreate that condition twice and them together. So that let's go to the indicator condition. Now this is something that's used quite a bit. So this allows you to apply a condition to an external symbol, one that's not the chart symbol. Remember, the chart symbol is the one that you're running it on. So this is on QQQ, or it's any of the components of the data set that you're running it on. So for example, IBM, Apple are parts of the Dow 30, so those would be the primary symbol. But let's say we wanted to create a condition that the RSI of the ETF of an index is less than 30. So in this case, if we ran this now, instead of the RSI of QQQ, which is the primary symbol that we're running the script on here, we're basing the condition, let's get back to the chart, on the RSI of the SPY. So you can see that the RSI of the close of the SPY is the one that we're using here. So now if this RSI drops below 30, it's 32, 29 here, then we buy. Okay, so this is a really popular qualifier to use for strategies when you want to base a condition on an index or some external symbol. Hold the presses. This is actually an example that you can't duplicate a block and use because you're using symbol, and so that's only being applied to that indicator. So I'm going to show you a different way to do that. And for example, we could use using symbol RSI 10 less than 30 for this block, and let's drag another one of those in, indicator comparative value, and we'll call that another RSI 10 is less than 30. Here we are. Now, instead of using RSI, we're going to use a transformer indicator. And remember the transformer indicators, you can look at them all right here in the indicator section. And we have one called SymbolInd. Now, so that's the symbol that you're going to apply to an indicator. Okay, so let's go back to the blocks. So instead of RSI here, what we'll do is we'll go for SymbolInd. Symbol, I don't see it. SymbolInd, there it is. And we'll configure it. Okay, and it turns out that the default configuration is RSI. And we'll put our 10 period RSI in there, and we'll put our symbol in there. which is SPY, which is the one that we're using here. So this is another way to get to external symbols and apply external symbols to indicators. Okay, so these conditions are exactly the same. The RSI of SPY is less than 30, or using the SymbolInd, RSI of SPY is less than 30, RSI 10 of SPY. So now on this block we could apply a qualifier. So we'll apply the n consecutive bars, and we'll say 2 consecutive bars, and we can get rid of, here, let's just go ahead and disable that condition and run it. So now if we look at a chart, let's look at a trade. Okay, here we have the RSI of 10 on SPY, and that's got to be less than 30 for 2 consecutive bars. Let's see here. Here it's 32, there's 29, there's 28, 28.9, and we bought. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated if you're applying the indicator symbol. You might need to use that transformer indicator SymbolInd to be able to apply another qualifier. We'll go back to our regular programming now. Okay, let's continue evaluating these. The logical inverter gives you a way to, if you might want the opposite condition. So for example, if, of course this would be easy to create if RSI is above 30, but there are other conditions that might not be so easy to invert using the rule here. So that's what this logical inverter is for. So in this case, when this condition evaluates to true, the inverter makes it false, and vice versa. So if we ran that, you would expect to buy any time that the RSI was above 30. So for example, it's probably going to find be difficult to find. Here we go. Here we're below 30, so we're not buying. And right there we went above 30. We're at 35, and then we bought. So we're selling, and then we're already above 30, so we're buying. That's why you see so many buys here. Okay, and bars ago. So now this gives you a way to delay any condition. So we want the RSI is less than 30 3 bars ago. So if we ran that and we looked at the chart, okay, so we start counting 1, 2, 3 bars ago, and this is where it dropped below 30. So here you can see we were at 30, above 30, and then we dropped below 30. So then 1, 2, 3 bars later, we trigger the buy for the next bar. Okay, n times within n bars. Okay, so this is, I probably don't have to demonstrate each one of these, but they're pretty self-explanatory. So n times within n bars, yeah, then the RSI would have to be below 30 twice within the last 5 bars, for example, and within the past n bars. So this gives you a way to say at any time in the past 10 bars, this condition would evaluate to true if it were true at any time within the past 10 bars. Okay, seems probably kind of self-explanatory. So those are the qualifiers. Okay, we've been through combining conditions with the OR divider. Well, of course, ANDing the conditions is whenever you put them together. We can combine them within, we can make them one condition or the condition to create to trigger a trade. We have the multi-condition group, which we went through, and the qualifiers. And I think I promised at the beginning that we would go through the single multiple position management. And since this is getting kind of long, we're going to save that for the next time. So thanks for coming.